All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started here. People might keep trickling in, so I'll keep letting them in as that happens. I am Robert Chgalski. I am the business manager here in the Center for Student Involvement. Today, we are going to be going over the treasurer's training. Everyone in here should be either a treasurer or an officer affiliated with a student organization. This training will walk everyone through how to make purchases, deposit money into their student org account, and do different types of financial activity related to student organizations. First things first, disclaimer: if you are the treasurer or an officer of a sports club or a fraternity and sorority, values-based fraternity or sorority, you may have some additional or different policies depending on your organization. Sports clubs, I believe you've already had a training with your advisor, Maham Khan, and then fraternity and sorority life. Once again, this is the values-based ones. Evan Englander or Alexander Smith should be reaching out to you as well about these policies and procedures from our office. So while a lot of this information will be the same, some of it will be different. The other thing I want to disclaim about this is that there's some material to cover. We want to try to get through this as best as possible. So I ask that we try to get through all the material before asking questions. We will do that at the end. If anything isn't answered that you still have a question, please stay till the end. Additionally, to count for attendance towards this event, there will be a link and a QR code at the end of the event. And so just hold off till the end of the event. You'll scan it. There's 3 questions on it. You just say which organization you're representing and give us a little bit of feedback, and that'll tell us who's been here and who's not here. So to begin, what is a student organization account? The account exists within the University of Dayton community. The financial activity of the groups, the way this works is it's a way for student organizations to be able to see the financial activity that is going on within their organization. It will be able to show you how to make purchases and deposit money, as I mentioned earlier. And it also gives the treasurer or the officers the ability to exercise good judgment in authorizing expenditures, regardless of the source of funds. Those making the purchasing decisions should be mindful of the university's mission and commitment. All student organizations have a unique FOPAL, which is just an accounting code that tells the university's accounting system which account works with which account goes with each student organization, and where it sits on the general ledger. All student organizations must manage money in accordance with the university's spending policy. All policies and procedures are documented on 1850. Things to know: the role of the treasurer, how to manage your student organization's money within 1850, how to make purchases, how to reimburse members of your organization, other things to know about managing money at the University of Dayton and funding opportunities. This is just kind of an agenda of things we'll go through today. So the role of the treasurer. The role of the treasurer is to oversee the management of the financial affairs of the organization. The role of the treasurer is also to add financial transactions into 1850. As I mentioned earlier, all of the student organizations accounts live on the general ledger here at the University of Dayton. Unfortunately, the general ledger does not communicate directly with 1850. So it is the responsibility of the treasurer and the student organizations officers to make sure that all financial activity is reported in 1850. We will walk through how to do that, where all of that stuff lives today as well. But it is your responsibility to make sure it's on there. You must also complete purchasing or delegate purchasing to student members, reconcile money in 1850 against account statements, and then manage the cash flow. Make sure you have enough funds coming in to cover the expenses that you have. So how to manage your money, student org money. We have 1850, which, as I previously stated, will track all your group organizations money, but it also covers your organizational members, your officers, your events, things like that. 1850 is also where you will request to spend your money. It is also where you can track your account balance. You can file reports or find reports about your financial activity as an organization. And you'll also find the student organization financial management tool, which I will show you here in a little bit. Runway purchase orders. Runway is one of the systems that we use at the university to make purchases. To do that, you can use, it's a great resource, and you can submit requisitions, which is just like an invoice in Runway, and then you update 1850 with transactions details in accordance with Runway. You can also use Runway to do reimbursements if you buy something for your organization and you're not able to use one of the other means that we have, and you have to use personal funds. The student organization can reimburse you for that using Runway. We also have a Center for Student Involvement P card. We have 3 of these in our office that are to be used on kind of a as needed basis for all 270 organizations. So as I'll show you later, there's a process to request those, and just be mindful that if yours doesn't get approved or you do get approved, to bring it back in a timely manner, because there is only 3 of those cards available for 270 organizations. And then managing your student organization's money, you also are responsible for depositing funds. This can include dues or money from fundraisers or bake sales, anything like that. As I mentioned, we're going to do an 1850 demo. I'm going to hold off on this till the end, so we're not jumping back and forth from screen to screen. But something to be important is to remember to update your role as a treasurer if you are not already in 1850. Logging into 1850, we'll go over that. So this is our financial management tool. This is the tool that, depending on what you're trying to do using your group's student organizational funds, this tool will walk you through step by step how to do every single transaction you could want to do with the university. Each page has one of these. Each student organization's accounting book has a link to this tool in it, so it's very easy to see and access. And I'll show you where that lives here in a minute. When making purchases, you'll use the financial request form submitted through 1850. This lives under the money tab and then under the budgeting tab. We have this set up where it will use what's called logic in 1850. So it will only show you the information that is pertaining to the purchase you're trying to make. So as an example, if you are trying to request a purchasing card, it's not going to ask you questions about traveling to an event, because you're not trying to request a enterprise van. You're trying to request a P card to go buy groceries. And that's really nice. So you don't have a bunch of information that's not pertaining to what you're trying to do. CSI will communicate approval and denial. Approval and denial of any purchases that there are. Reasons for denial is insufficient funds, form isn't filled out correctly, things like that. Most of the time, if you follow the steps in the financial management tool, it will be approved on the first submission, and we will work with you if there is mistakes to get those mistakes corrected, and forward any receipts or confirmations that may be sent to us on our end. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a FOPAL string. FOPAL just stands for Fund, Organization, Account, Program, Activity, and Location. This is just a 36-digit code that tells the university accounting system where the funds are living to pay expenses and charge different like invoices and bills too. You may need to be familiar with this term if you are trying to rent a space on campus or trying to have facilities help you set up a tent or something. So you're able to do that to make sure facilities will ask you for the FOPAL. And so we wanted to explain what that meant so that you're familiar with it. Once again, that is available in the financial management tool. So if you're looking for that, you can find it in that tool very simply. Runway is our e-procurement site, which, as I said earlier, allows you to make purchases from approved suppliers. It is also a really great feature to allow you to pay national dues if you have those. If you're trying to pay a registration fee to a conference, you can use that as well. And also, if you are trying to make a donation from your student org to a outside organization, we have a feature in there that allows you to write a check basically to send to those companies. All students are assigned a shopper role for approval in Runway, so everyone will have access to it. I can show you where that is located on the next slide. But the cart needs to either be assigned to a treasurer. Once you've made your cart on Runway and you've put the items you needed, it either needs to be assigned to your treasurer or to you if you have a member doing it. And the treasurer can assign it to the CSI staff. Once again, the financial management tool does a great job of showing you how to do this. So on Runway, if you log into Runway, you will log into your porches, and then on the right side of the screen, there on the navigational tabs, there's a Runway button at the bottom of it. You can also type in go.uda.edu/runway, and it'll also take you there as well. Runway reimbursement. So purchases should be made in Runway or P-card are going to be your first two options. As I mentioned, reimbursement is a third option, but it will not be approved if it violates the university's purchasing policy. All reimbursements are processed through Runway. Payees are called suppliers in Runway. If a student needs to be set up for reimbursement in Runway, click the Add Supplier. Once again, the financial management tool will show you how to walk through all of this. But the students are not automatically set up as payees in the system, but anyone ever set up in Runway will be in there and can be used as a supplier. The next thing we can do is a P card. As I mentioned earlier, the P cards are available in the Center for Student Involvement office and are available for approved non-Runway purchases. If something cannot be used for on Runway, if the supplier is not in there or they need a credit card directly, a P card, which works just like a credit card, is available to be used with the once requested and approved by the Center for Student Involvement. To do this, you must fill out the financial request form on 1850. Once you do get approved for the form, it is your responsibility as the officer of the student organization to ensure that the purchase is tax exempt and items are delivered correctly. We always tell students to avoid places like Sam's Club or Costco or membership required shopping places because sometimes that those facilities require your membership to also match your organization, and it just gets hairy because with the university being tax exempt, we do not get charged sales tax. But if your membership is not tax exempt as well, then some of these businesses will deny you business or charge you tax. And if you try to bring anything back with a tax on the receipt, it is your responsibility to go get that fixed, and your organization's finances may be on hold until that is corrected. Borrowed cards should be returned within 48 hours. We understand that things happen and sometimes purchases can't be made within that 48-hour window. But if that is the case, please relay that to us. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 cards for 270 organizations. So we try to have those cards available as much as possible. So just be courteous for your fellow students. An example of somewhere you may use this is Joanne Fabrics, because say you're trying to buy a big piece of fabric to make tie blankets to donate to a children's hospital. Runway doesn't currently have that set up in it. So that would be an example of somewhere that you might be using that. Another very popular example that we use for this is grocery stores. If your organization is trying to have a cookout and they need to go buy hamburgers from Kroger, they can request a P card for that purchase, go to Kroger, buy the things they want, return the card and the receipt with no tax on it, and they'll be good to go. So the next area we move into is income. Examples of income, as I mentioned earlier, are membership dues or donations, which we will talk about a little bit more in depth here in a second. Fundraisers or university account transfers, event entry fees, all are examples of this. You could also get this from sales, things of that nature. The reason I said we want to talk about donations is because there is two different types of donations. So what we would have for this income example is if you go home and your mom and dad want to donate $20 to your student organization to be helpful, they can do that. That's not a problem. But if you go approach somebody and your mom and dad work for a company and the company wants to donate $100 to your company, but they want it, or to your student organization, excuse me, but they want it to be tax deductible, they will need to go through the university's advancement system to get a tax deductible receipt or a tax receipt for that. They can do that by going to this link on the page, the go.udane.edu/give. On that page, there is a drop-down menu, and they can just select your student organization. The funds will then be deposited directly into your student organization's account. So there is that. If you're not sure, just always ask. And if you're still unsure, direct them to the give page just to be safe. An example of something else we have commonly happen is organizations want to collect donations for a nonprofit organization that's not on campus. And what we try to do with that is if your organization is going to collect those funds and just directly turn around and donate those funds to the nonprofit organization, we ask that you just direct those donations directly to the nonprofit organization. That way we don't have to wait for the funds to be processed in our office and then be turned around and have a check written and sent to that organization as well. If this is something that's going to be over multiple events, or you think that there's a special circumstance that your group would need this for, please reach out to our office, the Center for Student Involvement. Come talk to us and we will work with you on that. But if you're, for the most part, if your group is just trying to hold a one-day event to try to raise funds for a nonprofit organization, have direct those donations, excuse me, to the nonprofit directly. Somewhere you can donate funds, or I'm sorry, if you're trying to deposit funds, one location you have is the box office. The box office on the first floor at Kennedy Union, next to the info center, is where you can donate funds. And be sure to indicate the donations when you do that. They have a small form that you fill out. It's just who you are, which organization you're donating the funds to, how much you're donating, or excuse me, depositing, and that can be done there. So how to make a deposit. Transactions may be completed at the Center for Student Involvement or the Office of Student Accounts in the first floor of St. Mary's, room 103. And if you do the deposits at the Office of Student Accounts, you will have to fill out an envelope that asks for your name, your information, which organization you are donating the funds to, the full pull string as we discussed earlier, as well as some other additional information. You'll fill that out, put the money in the envelope, and drop it through a Dropbox. This is definitely something that students use, and it can be used if, say, your organization had a late night event and they're trying to deposit money late in the evening, that Dropbox is available. We recommend that students come to the Center for Student Involvement with their deposits. We ask that they do this because we are more easily able to log that information into 1850 to make sure that it is immediately visible for you on the 1850 page. And as well as we're able to help make sure that you have all the accurate information. If you go to the Office of Student Accounts and try to deposit that money and something is incorrect on the envelope, it adds a further delay. The group has to get contacted, things have to be corrected. It's much easier if you just come to the Center for Student Involvement, or as I mentioned on the previous page, the box office on the first floor of Kennedy Union. Please try to avoid multiple trips just to simplify things. We can accept cash and check there. If you're having a check, if someone's making a check out to the group, make sure it's made out to the University of Dayton - your club name. That makes it the easiest way to have that deposited. 1850 also has online deposits that are available to be set up for credit card. If your group is trying to accept membership dues online, or trying to sell items online and they want to be able to accept credit card, we can set that up using 1850. Please contact the Center for Student Involvement for further information about how to do that. Something that we always want to touch on with student organizations is OmniSource is the imprinting company of the university. If your group is trying to have t-shirts or sweaters or anything like that, any sort of apparel made, it needs to be used. OmniSource needs to be the first place you check for when doing that. You can go to that promos.udane.edu site, or you can reach out to the Center for Student Involvement and we can give you a contact at OmniSource to do that. There's also the OmniSource form, which is located in the financial request form. And you can reach out to Megan Works, who works with OmniSource, and her email is on that slide. Once again, if you don't remember that information or can't find it, email the Center for Student Involvement and we can help you get in contact with her. For best results, please plan ahead for the best pricing. Also, with the current state of the world, the further in advance you reach out to them and work with them, the more likely you are to be able to get the things that you want. With all the global shortages going on, we have already been told that a lot of the t-shirt materials and different types of t-shirts that are available are on back order. So it may be hard if you wait till closer to an event to get your order in, you may not be able to get the first choice of which type of t-shirt material or color or something like that that you want. So always try to plan ahead as much as possible. Travel. Going off of what I mentioned on the last page, with the current state of the world, there is a new travel procedure in place. All travel requires completion and approval of the event registration risk management form on 1850. All out of town and overnight travel must be approved by the Center for International Programs approval process that they have. This process, these events should be registered at least 28 days before the expected travel date because of the amount of time it takes to get everything approved and make sure that there is a comprehensive plan in place. This affects treasurers in this meeting specifically because the travel must be approved before we move ahead with any booking accommodation. So any booking of vehicles or hotels or anything like that, this form has to be approved before we can approve that in our office. Moving on to travel, the university has a hotel booking site available to make this easier for student organizations looking to travel. Once we follow this link, I'll show you after we get through these slides. And the student travel site will allow you to go in, and it works just like a kayak or a hotels.com. It'll ask you where you want to stay, which days you're staying, how many rooms you need, and it'll pull in the best offers around that city or that university, wherever you're trying to travel. It'll give you the best rates. You submit all that information. And then once you submit all the information and request, it'll come to me. I approve it once I get the financial request form from 1850. And it's super simple. You don't have to worry about carrying a credit card with you or anything like that. To type in, you do need a credit card when traveling to cover incidentals for the hotel. So please remember that if your group is traveling. Vehicles. We are in the process of getting a new process set up for vehicles. So be on the lookout for that information. If your group is in the need of vehicles before that process is established and made public, you will just follow these steps and the Center for Student Involvement will work with you. In the financial request form, if you select you need an enterprise rental vehicle, you just list out all the information on the screen, the number and types of vehicles you need, the pickup date, the return date, and then the drivers for the trip. You need to have at least 2, and they need to be UD certified. Our office will contact Enterprise, since that is who the university has a contractual agreement with. We will make the reservation. The pickup location is the Dayton Mall location, located at that address there. If there is a different address your organization needs for whatever reason, there is a field on the financial request form for you to fill out to indicate that preferred location. Just let us know in the form. All drivers must be certified in 21 years or older. There is a driver certification process they have to go through the university. It's not very long. It can be done in probably about an hour. There is the link there, and that will also be sent out after the presentation is completed as well. So other information we have is located here. As I mentioned earlier, all purchases need to be tax exempt because they are representing the university. So they have the 501(c) tax exemption exclusion. No purchases may have sales tax on this. The only exemption to that would be gas, if you're being reimbursed from your organization for gas. Gift taxes, cash and credit gift cards that are given out as a gift from an event. So you're doing some sort of raffle or you're doing just a giveaway for your group. Any cash or gift card greater than $1 in value is considered a gift and needs to be and is taxable for the recipient. So we have a gift form that needs to be filled out. If you do that, as for items that are non-cash or gift card and or a gift card, excuse me, that only applies for over $100. So if you wanted to give out something worth $20, it's not a problem. But if you give out a $20 gift card, there is a tax form that needs to be completed. Once again, just reach out to our office when you submit the financial request form. It will be on there as well. The form will be available on there as well if you indicate that you're giving out a gift or some sort of cash or gift card. Contract services. If your organization is trying to book a space or something that requires a contract, you as an individual and representative of your organization are not allowed to sign that contract. All contracts have to be signed by the executive director of student life, who is located in the Center for Student Involvement. It has to go through our legal process here at the university. So if you have a contract or agreement, basically anything that somebody wants you to sign your name to on behalf of a student organization, it needs to come to the Center for Student Involvement first to be approved by the university. We also have some funding opportunities here. So you have SGA, we'll have fall and spring funding weeks. Be on the lookout for emails regarding that. You also have a special request. They also have special request funding available. With that, it's available all semester, I believe, but you have to make a presentation at one of the SGA meetings. So once again, be on the lookout for that. If you have any questions regarding SGA funding, you can email sga@udayton.edu. Another great opportunity we have is UD Late Night. If your organization is looking to put on an event and needs some additional funding, I believe UD Late Night events can have between $1,200 to $1,500 granted to them. The event just has to follow the guidelines below. It has to be open to all students. It has to be held within some hours of 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. So it could start at 8 or 9 p.m. and run till midnight, but it has to be within that framework. And it has to be drug and alcohol free. Of course, any questions you have regarding any of that, you can email studentorgsmoney@udayton.edu. For everyone that this is just a refresher for, here is that QR code to do the attendance link. As I mentioned before, I also put it, I'll also put it in the chat for everyone to use as a link. As I mentioned before, we will now go through some actual demonstrations and examples of using 1850 and the different resources there. So if you want to stick around for that, that will be available. But here's the link if you need to go. So as I mentioned, there's that. We will log. I want to demonstrate to everybody 1850 here. So when you log into 1850, this will be the landing page you see. Your organization will be under groups. They're all listed here. For our purposes, we're going to use UD Late Night as our example here. Once you get into your organization's page, if you go down to the money page, the money tab on the left side navigational bar, you can click that. As I mentioned, on top of every student organization's page is this Student Orgs Financial Management tool. If you click here, it'll open another window and it'll show you that financial management tool. As you scroll down on the accounting book page back on 1850, as I mentioned, you have your revenues and your expenses and then your balance. All members of the organization can see this, so it makes it very transparent for people to see. As you scroll down more, it shows you transactions. So anytime you make a purchase or deposit money through 1850, it'll show up down here. We work as hard as we can to keep this up to date, but as I mentioned earlier, we have 270 organizations. So it is your responsibility as a treasurer to make sure all your financial activity is documented down here. As an administrator, I have a few extra buttons here. As you can see, there's a create transactions, but admin only. For student organizations, treasurers, you'll go down to this budget tab. And once you go down to here, here's that request payment button. Once you click that, this will bring up the payment and budget request page. And on here is where you will document what you're trying to do. If you're trying to make a purchase, a reimbursement, or make a deposit, for this example, we'll say make a purchase. And then you can just type in what it is. Just going to say it's a test amount for this. As I said, if it's a purchase, it's going to be an expense. If you're making a deposit, you'll switch this to revenue. Now, as you can see on here, it states that we only have 1 penny. This is one of the shortcomings of 1850 is that the budget and the accounting book, while they do communicate, they don't communicate as well as we'd wish. Just because it says a penny doesn't mean this organization only has a penny available. If we go back real quick and look, we have $100 available in our group funds budget. So just to point that out to people, if this says that you only have a penny, that's just because of how we had to set up the budgeting tool. Just be aware of the amount that's actually on the accounting book in 1850. So you can change that to, I believe we had $100. So let's say for this text example, we're going to make a purchase of $50. Something else that confuses students a lot with this is the from allocated and from group funds. While you are spending money out of your group funds budget, that group funds line on the accounting book does not communicate well with what we try to do. So this group funds is from a dedicated group funds that 1850 has established. You do not want to use that line because we're not able to carry balances and stuff from year to year. Please use the from allocated line. If you by accident use this from group funds line, it's not the end of the world. We can go in and change it, but it may make your accounting book look a little messier and harder to track things. Anything with a red star next to it is something that is required for the page. There are some things down here that are additional and not required. If you have this information, please fill it in as it is beneficial for us and it makes tracking expenses and purchases easier, but it is not required. Once you complete that, you click the next button. And then the 1850 brings up a financial request form that we have on here. There is a little bit of repetition in this. We are aware of it. We tried to minimize it as much as possible. The reason for that is the previous page is going to be the information that is viewable by all members on the accounting page. This form is what we in the Center for Student Involvement directly receive, and this is how we review what purchase you're trying to make and make the proper accommodations, as I mentioned earlier. So for this, you just select your organization, you select which type of funds you're going to be using. As we mentioned earlier, you have your group funds, your funding from SGA, and also if you get funds awarded from UD Late Night, there are selections for those. For this example, we'll use group funds. We click next. We then select, once again, which type of purchase you're trying to make. We're trying to make a purchase. For this example, we are going to request a P card, as that is something that is commonly done, as we mentioned earlier. For that, we are making a purchase because we want to go buy groceries for our student organization's event, as an example. So we hit purchase, we then click food, and we select groceries because, as I mentioned, this is the example of us going to the grocery to buy hamburgers or something for a group cookout. So you click next. Once you get to this page, it'll ask you questions based on are you trying to go to the store to buy something in store or online, because this is the P card form. If you try to buy something online, as I mentioned earlier, there is the logic here. So it'll ask you additional questions. If you click in store, it asks you different questions. So you just enter your phone number. And so enter that. We have a partnership with a company called Gordon Food Services, or GFS. This is a great, it's a company that you can buy bulk and groceries at here locally. And we have a great partnership with them. We have individual laminated cards that can be given out to you. So this is a great way to help not tie up those 3 P cards we have available for all the student organizations. If you would like to pursue this, please contact our office and we can help you get that arranged. But in this example, we're going to say no, we're going to go to a different store. So for this example, we'll say we are going to Kroger. And then which date are you requesting to pick up the card? We ask that you make this no sooner than 24 hours. That way our office has time to make sure there's a card available, make sure that someone is aware of it in the office. They can help you fill out the forms that are in the office and are associated with the P card request, and so on. So always try to make sure that you do that within and with 24 hours at least notice. So for this example, we'll say we want to pick it up Friday. All that information I just mentioned is on here as well. We then ask for what time you want to pick it up. So we'll say 1 p.m. on Friday. And then we have your signature below, just stating that you are responsible for the purchasing card as long as it is in your hands. The order will be tax-free, and you will return the P card as well as all the receipts by an agreed upon date and time. That date and time we can establish once you're in the office picking up the card. Once you do that, you click next. It'll then just ask you to once again agree to all the university's policies and code of conduct at all times. You can just initial that and then you hit submit. Something that I want to make sure everyone is aware of is just because you submit this does not mean it's approved. You will then receive an email from the studentorgs@udane.edu email, either approving that time, or if for some reason we're not able to accommodate that date and time you requested, we will follow up, let you know that it is not approved, and we will try to find a date and time that it does work for your student organization. But as you can see, that $50 that we submitted is sitting, request is here, but it is also on the accounting book page. So you can see that it's sitting right here, pending approval. So that's a really nice feature that you're able to see on there as well. As I mentioned earlier, if you're working with a facility, if you're working with facilities or a different department on campus and they need your FOPAL string, you can use this financial management tool, which, as I mentioned, is located at the top of everybody's accounting book page on 1850. You can click that, and then this tool, like I said, will walk you through all these things. But if you just need the FOPAL, there is a button down here at the bottom. You can click that. It will then ask you which funding source you're trying to use. In this example, we're trying to use our organizational funds. It then asks you what you're trying to do. The reason it asks you this is because that FOPAL string, as I mentioned, is 36 digits, and some of those fields are customized depending on what you are trying to purchase. That is why there are so many questions. So let's say you're trying to book a meeting space on campus. If you click that, and then you use your example for this one, we're just going to use the math club. Here is your FOPAL string for that event. Don't write this down if you're not the math club, because it will not work with your organization, but that's how simple it is to find that code. Once you say this is correct, it'll then tell you how to enter that information. And if you're unfamiliar with it, or you forget how to use that financial request form on 1850, you click the show me button and it'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to do everything we just walked through moments ago. So with that, I think that concludes the majority of the training that we had scheduled. If you have any questions, please feel free to stick around, and I can do my best to answer those questions. But if no one else has any questions, please feel free to leave the meeting.
Yeah.
If you have a question, you can either ask it now, or you can enter it into the chat, whichever you're more comfortable with.
Okay, perfect. Like I'll ask now. So for when we're trying to pay for certain things like groceries and stuff, what if we already like have an account for like a bank account from like a local bank? Like, do we still have to try to like request a form from you guys to try to borrow
the
a
recording?
card?
Yes, the recording will be sent out, as well as the slides will be made available. One more thing, if you've all received this email, you're probably already aware of this, but if not, under dashboard, if you go to officers, this is where you can mark yourself as the treasurer of your organization. If you're not an officer of the page, then just have somebody that is currently the officer, either the president or an advisor, make you one, and then you can add in the thing. Sorry, I was not sharing my screen. So on 1850, as we mentioned, you go to your group. Go to group. On the dashboard tab, you click officer, and this is where that is located. As I mentioned, you can have an advisor or someone else enter you if you're not already on that screen. Yeah, Nathan, I'm not able to hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, you can't hear me now? I'll take that as a no.
All right, so I answered the question. We will be sending the recording and the slides out. You'll get an email from 1850 with that information. Mia asked about grants and how we use it and access it. That depends on who is giving out the grant, Mia. If you are, if it's somebody that you're working with, if it's SGA will work with you to access those funds. If you're looking at the UD late night that we mentioned, come into the Center for Student Involvement and we can work with you there to get that going. That's kind of on a case-by-case basis. If there's another source that is you're trying to receive a grant from, like an external company, they can write the organization either a check or check with them to see what their processes are. Sometimes they want to reimburse you for purchases, but if you have a grant and they want to give that grant to you, they can deposit the check. Just remember, as we mentioned in the form, it needs to be made out to the University of Dayton dash the club name. If you have any additional questions about that, we can discuss it. Just shoot us an email at studentorgsmoney at udane.edu. The link for attendance is in the chat, yes, and I can also put that back up on the screen in case anybody missed it. Yes, as Gwen mentioned to you, Bianca, we can reimburse the amount of the item, just not tax if there is tax on a receipt. Chris, this will be a link will be sent out on through 1850 with where it is saved at and all the slides and that information. We will be also sending out an additional email about where you can locate it if you don't have that one. Sarah, yeah, as Gwen mentioned, the business will know how to do it. If you just mention to the cashier as you go to check out that the purchase is you're with the University of Dayton and the purchase is tax exempt, they will work with you to get that filled out. Yeah, Grace. So FOPOL is just the university's way of being identifying where funds go. So it stands for fund, operation, account, program, activity, and location. And each of those just kind of give the university's accounting system an idea of where the funds are living. So each student organization has their own fund, which is the F and FOPOL. And then each of those sub acronyms under it, the operations, account, programming, activity, and location, are all just telling the university's accounting system what your purchase is making. So if you're trying to buy groceries, it's different. It'll have a different code than if you are trying to rent a space on campus. Elizabeth, you asked, are you able to use group funds just like SGA funds if you submit a financial request form before SGA funds have been released? So SGA funds are a little different, but with the your group funds, you're allowed to spend those at the group's discretion at any time. SGA funds, you have to follow the SGA rules. I think it either has to be a reimbursement or you work directly with their office and they will make a purchase for you. But the group funds you can use whenever you need. When just by filling out the form, we will work with you to make sure that those group funds are accessible. Sarah, if your group didn't request funds for this semester, can we still submit financial funding requests? So if your group doesn't have group funds under 1850 under their group funds line, then you don't have any money to spend right now. But if you're referring to submitting SGA requests, yes, their fall funding week has not opened yet. Every student will receive an email when SGA fall funding opens up. Yes, and as Gwen mentioned, if you don't have funds in your group funding, you try to submit something, it will not be approved. It'll be declined and rejected. So you won't be able to spend money that your group doesn't have.